Now to Russia's war on Ukraine. President Trump questions now whether Vladimir Putin really wants a peace deal. In a post on Truth Social, he questioned whether he's being strung along by the Russian president. Trump wrote, here's part of it, "It makes me think that maybe he doesn't want to stop the war. He's just tapping me along." Well, this follows Trump's 15-minute meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky just before the funeral of Pope Francis. CNN senior White House reporter Kevin Liptak has more for us. Kevin, good morning to you.
Good morning, Victor. You know, those photos inside St. Peter's Basilica were so notable. These two men, President Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky, sitting knee to knee, deep in conversation about the conflict in Ukraine. But I think it was what the president wrote on Truth Social as he left Rome on Air Force One heading here to New Jersey that was so notable. The president offering a stern rebuke, not of Zelensky, who has been the subject of so much of his ire, but of Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, referencing specifically Russia's assault on Kyiv over the last week. It was the worst bombardment of the Ukrainian capital since last summer. And the president wrote, "There was no reason for Putin to be shooting missiles into civilian areas, cities and towns over the last few days. It makes me think that maybe he doesn't want to stop the war. He's just tapping me along and has to be dealt with differently through banking or secondary sanctions." So you hear there a real shift in the president's tone. You know, it was only on Thursday when I asked the president inside the cabinet room at the White House whether he thought Putin was serious about reaching a peace deal after this assault on Kyiv. And the president was pretty adamant. He thought both sides of this conflict did want to strike an agreement, did want to reach a peace. Now the president is voicing a lot more concern about whether Putin could be serious about this. He's essentially lending voice to the concerns that a lot of European leaders have had over the last several months, that Putin may be playing for time, that he thinks he has the upper hand and thinks that he can string President Trump out as he tries to resolve this conflict. And so clearly the president is frustrated that his attempts to bring this war to an end have so far not been fruitful. Remember, he said he would be able to resolve this conflict within 24 hours of taking office. Now he's butting up on the 100-day mark of his presidency, and so far there is no peace. Most of his ire has been directed at Zelensky over the course of the last several months. He has called him, he has said that he's not a fan of the Ukrainian president. There was that blow up in the Oval Office. But now it appears that the president is placing at least some of the blame on Putin. And that's a notable shift and certainly something to keep an eye on as this war continues to grind forward. Victor?
All right, Kevin, thank you very much. You set the table. Let's now have the conversation with Kim Dozier, CNN Global Affairs Analyst. Kim, good morning to you. So let's start here. You're encouraged by the characterization from both leaders about that conversation at the Basilica, the imagery, the social media postings. Why?
Well, this was the reset that Ukraine and especially Zelensky really needed after that Oval Office meeting, but also a one-on-one with President Trump allowed Zelensky to rebuild the relationship that had been broken by years of Trump seeing Zelensky as the one who refused to investigate Hunter Biden in his first term. Zelensky being portrayed over and over in conservative media as ungrateful and even associated with some of the hardline military units that have been called Nazis inside Ukraine. Instead, what we got to see was the two men having this obvious heart-to-heart. Meanwhile, the opening was created by Putin and Russia. Every time this past week that Trump has asked Vladimir Putin to stop the attacks, instead, we've had another night, just like last night, of hundreds of drones and missiles hitting various cities in Ukraine and killing people. And that seems to have really gotten Trump's attention. Hey, this guy isn't listening to me.
All right, so let's talk about the path forward here, because although they both said that it was a positive conversation, and the pictures look like they're having an intense conversation, only lasted 15 minutes, but you can get something done in 15 minutes. The president, President Trump, told Time magazine that Crimea will stay with Russia. The president speaks about Russia tapping him along as if that's some revelation. Starmer, Macron, they've been saying that for months now. So are they really any closer to a deal?
Yeah, here's where we get to the hard part. The two proposals, the one put forward by Ukraine and Europe and the one put forward by the US, which feels like it was dictated by Vladimir Putin, are very far apart. The current US deal would basically allow Russia to keep everything it's holding, Crimea, but also the current territory that it's occupying, and have very few security guarantees. Ukraine wants reassurances. They want NATO troops on the ground, but individually represented, not under the banner of NATO, to make sure that Russia can't invade again. And the White House hasn't fully embraced that yet. So will this moment of goodwill lead to any changes in those proposals? I did speak to one Ukrainian official earlier this week who was briefed on the talks, and they said, look, it doesn't look good, but this is what happens in negotiations. You bring the two impossible wish lists together, and then you start bargaining. Before this, we didn't even have anything written down from the US administration. Now we have something to work from. And I think you also might see a signing of a mineral deal as soon as this week to keep that momentum going and to keep Trump thinking, hey, Ukraine is actually working with us. It's Moscow that's working against us.
Yeah, also coming this week, the 100-day mark, and that marker might also offer some urgency to get something accomplished that you can say you did within the first 100 days. The potential for sanctions mentioned in the president's social media post, the banking or secondary sanctions, what's the potency of those considering the sanctions that were levied by the U.S., Western Europe, during the first year and a half of this war? They weren't deterrents.
They still didn't go after the oil as much as they could, Russia's oil sales. They allowed Europe, India, China to keep buying oil and natural gas from Russia. So I have spoken to Trump administration officials, current and former, who say they can think of ways to tighten up to make Vladimir Putin feel more economic pain. Let's see, though, if that's just a tweet or that more bad behavior leads to an actual levying of new sanctions, which would at least be a symbolic hit against Putin and might make him sit up and take notice.
Kimberly Dozier, always good to start with you on a Sunday morning. Thanks so much. Enjoy the day.